Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Great Scott! There's no crying in baseball!
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
This is where the fun begins.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That's right, we're ranking Nosferatu. Nosferatu is a 2024 American supernatural horror film. It is a remake of F.W. Murnau's 1922 silent film Nosferatu that was inspired by Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula. In this movie, a young woman becomes the object of obsession for the vampire Count Orlok, leading to a harrowing take of gothic horror and sacrifice. I watched this movie because I heard a lot of good things about it, but honestly, I was really disappointed. Let's get into why with the 10 essential aspects of a movie. First is plot. Does the movie follow a comprehensive story arc and is plausible within the world that has been created? Personally, I didn't enjoy this plot. I thought it was very boring and not that interesting. I really thought it dragged out throughout the movie without any real progress going on in the story itself. This whole movie honestly felt like I was waiting in line at an amusement park for a ride where I knew the beginning was going to be slow and I was going to sit there in that line for a while, but eventually I was just waiting for that time, that short minute or two that I get to ride the roller coaster. But then by the time I got to the front of the line, I found out the roller coaster had broken down and I had to turn around. That's what this movie felt like. It was so boring and I was waiting. I just kept waiting for more to happen and it just kind of didn't happen. I don't know if that's on purpose, to be honest. I've never watched the original, but I just found the actual plot, the actual story of this movie to be really boring. Second is attraction. Does the movie have an interesting premise with a high entertainment value? Interesting to some. I don't know. It definitely has a style to it that I think people enjoy. It had a classic feel, a real gothic horror. There's a lot of imagery that I can somewhat enjoy, but I just wasn't that entertained. So if you just enjoy that kind of setting, if you're into a classic horror, a gothic horror, then this is good for you. But honestly, if you're in it to watch vampires, if you like vampires and think it's an interesting vampire story, you're in the wrong place. Third is theme. What message or truth is the movie trying to convey? Now, most of the time I really try and pick something out. I try and find something that could be a message in movies. This one was really difficult. I don't know if it was necessarily going after a message, but there is notes about obsession, about power, about love, kind of things that are in a lot of movies, but I couldn't really figure out a real message that was trying to be conveyed. Fourth is dialogue. Is there a real feel to the conversation? I absolutely think there's a real feel. It definitely has that old feel. They had old style dialogue that was honestly kind of hard to understand at times, just because there were phrases that we don't use anymore and you had to sit there and think about what that might have meant, and by the time you thought about it, 2 other sentences have passed, so you're playing catch up. So it was kind of hard, but honestly it was good drawing you in. It was good at really diving you into this world and convincing you that you're in the time period that it is portraying, but this movie is mostly dialogue. There's not much action in here at all. It is like 95% dialogue, which is okay. It just got old after a while for me. Fifth is acting. Are the characters convincing? Now, I think there's quality acting in here. I think the actors were trying to do their best. But I just found it comedic at times. I really think the movie was going for a more serious, scary, nerve-wracking kind of feeling throughout the movie, throughout scenes, and I just did not have that at all. In fact, I found a lot of it funny. Some of the acting that was supposed to be demonic, I just thought looked ridiculous. I thought it was funny. So it just didn't really work well for me, but I don't want to discredit the actor or actress because I think they were really trying, and I do think there was some good acting there. It just wasn't complemented by the story being told in the way that it was being told. That being said, Bill Skarsgård is somebody that I heard a lot about. He plays Count Orlok, and people were saying what a good job he did. Honestly, I don't see where he did such a great job. The only thing that I will give him is that the voice was really good. He did a great job with the voice. I mean, it was like just entrancing. Like, I was in a trance when he was speaking. I really wanted to hear him speak more. I enjoyed hearing him throughout the film, but I don't know if you call that great acting. I mean, it was a good job, but I don't know. I feel like he's getting a little more credit than necessarily is needed here. 6 is cinematography. Is there a creative use of lighting, setting, and wardrobe to convey emotion? Now, this is a very cinematic heavy movie. It is a movie that is not necessarily made for entertainment, but made as an art form. And there's definitely some touches of really good art here. I think there's a lot of interesting scenes throughout this movie. The way they were shot, the way they were lit was very pleasing and interesting, and had you thinking about why they were shot the way they were, what's reality, what's not. I really enjoyed that. Now, something I really like about this movie is it's kind of a throwback to the original that was done in the 20s, but also just adding an element to the movie is that every time it was nighttime, he put this almost black and white filter over the entire movie. Now, it's not necessarily black and white, but it's very close, and that was very interesting. I enjoyed that. It really put a difference between what was going on in the day and what was going on at night. It didn't blend at all. It was harsh transitions of, oh, okay, it's nighttime now, because everything is kind of a blue. It's almost black and white. It's just, I really enjoyed that. I thought those were really good. Emotion-wise, like I said with acting, I feel like it did the opposite. I feel like it was supposed to be tense and scary. To me, it was just funny and ridiculous. I didn't like it. I really did not like the demonic aspects of this movie. Not because they were demonic, but just because they felt weird. They felt unexplained. They didn't feel natural. And so when they did occur, I was just kind of laughing because I was like, what in the world is going on? This is silly. So I do think it was going for an emotional side, but for some people, and from what I'm hearing, it really worked, but for me, it just didn't. 7th is editing, and this is all about the pace of the movie. The movie is 2 hours and 12 minutes, and it was way too long. Way too long. This movie did not need to be this long. I would have really preferred this movie to have been like an hour 40 at most. I think there is a lot of dead time in this movie. There's a lot of time that the plot does not move forward, and the scenes that are in it are not adding anything extra. I mean, there's a huge portion of this movie that the woman is having nightmares and she's convulsing and doing all, and she does it like 12 times, and you get so sick of it. You're like, okay, you start to not care anymore. You're like, all right, here she goes again. Like, dang, I would have kicked her out by now. I am so sick of this woman. I just think there was way too much time dragged out for the story. It could have been way shorter. 8th is soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack was good. It fit the movie well. I thought it was creepy. It wasn't anything crazy, but it did a good job for what it was trying to do. 9th is directing. Now I feel the directors in charge of the previous 8 aspects, they're the ones that have to give it their stamp of approval, put it all together, and make a really good movie. Now the director of this movie is Robert Eggers, and this is his 4th film. The 4 films that he's directed are The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman, and finally Nosferatu. I don't know how to feel. The only movie I've watched was The Northman. I really enjoyed that movie. I really enjoyed the story of that movie. And then now I've watched Nosferatu, which I really didn't enjoy. I do think that it is partially because it is just not my style. It's not a style of movie I enjoy. Not that he didn't make a good movie. I think he's a really good director. I think he brings a unique spin to filmmaking. I enjoy his presence. I enjoy watching a film that I feel is really trying to take new steps and add some new scenery or try things that are different to try and get some emotion out of you. Even though it may not have worked in a movie like this for me, I really enjoy that. I enjoy his storytelling. I didn't enjoy it in this movie, but I did in the previous, so I'm interested to see what else he makes, and I'll have to watch some of the other movies he's made. 10th is time. Does it stand the test of time? Personally, no, not at all. I will be happy to never watch this movie again. I would prefer to watch Twilight, and I'm not even joking. I much prefer to watch Twilight than this movie again. I was going into it wanting a vampire movie and got something totally different. Now, that may have been my fault for expecting that out of this movie, but I didn't enjoy a lot of aspects of this movie. It seems like some people like it, but honestly, I think it will be forgotten about. I think there's much better vampire movies out there. Now for the review section. Rotten Tomatoes critics gives it an 85. The audience gives it a 74. And IMDb gives it a 77. Kind of surprised by these ratings. I thought they would actually be a little bit higher from purely what I heard about this movie. I am around 77, 74. I think that makes a lot more sense. The only reason it's even up that high is because I do think it did some good cinematic things, but honestly, not much else. I had trouble with this movie. I thought it was way too long. There's just a lot of things I didn't like about it, but I can see that there's some cinematic aspects to save it. I think a C rating is a very fair rating for this movie. Finally, for the rankings. For the year of 2024, out of 30 total movies on the entertainment side, it's going to be 24th, just below It Ends With Us and above Kraven the Hunter. Now, I have it above Kraven the Hunter because that movie, honestly, they're both kind of long, but there's some parts of Nosferatu that I can appreciate, some of the visuals. There were parts of that movie I was slightly entertained. Kraven the Hunter pretty much only has the action. This was a really hard ranking for me. If you flip-flop these two, I honestly wouldn't care. I didn't like either of them that much, and they were both very long. I'm just somebody who enjoys cinematic aspects a little more than entertainment, and there's some small ones that I enjoyed in Nosferatu that I prefer over just the small action sequences in Kraven the Hunter. Now, I do have it below It Ends With Us. Again, another movie I would not watch again, but I'm kind of a sucker for romance, and there's some romance in there that I enjoyed. I also just think that the movie is a little easier to get through than Nosferatu. I mean, I was ready to leave the theater like 3/4 of the way through Nosferatu. Honestly, even sooner than that. It just was way too long and not interesting enough. It Ends With Us keeps me entertained at least a little longer. Now, cinematically, out of 30 total movies, I have it 10th, just below Conclave and above Joker. I have it above Joker. I mean, somewhat similar movies. I feel like both of their plots are not very well done. However, I just think there's problems with the second Joker's plot. It really reversed some of the storytelling being done in the first one and didn't make a whole lot of sense. The plot in Nosferatu was just kind of, it just was too long and didn't really go anywhere, but it didn't have problems. It wasn't convoluted. It just wasn't very interesting, and I feel like that is less of a sin than making a plot that doesn't make sense. It makes you question why the whole story even exists rather than just kind of being boring. Now, I do have it below Conclave. Again, I kind of put this down to the plot aspects. Conclave is a good story. I think it's an interesting story. It's one that you have a hard time watching more than once, but the first time you're watching it, it's interesting to try and pick out who is responsible, who's going to win the election, who's responsible for what actions that occur in the movie, and I just think that that storytelling is done better than in Nosferatu, while also having its own cinematic aspects. Though I think Nosferatu takes more chances cinematically, and it works well, it's just not enough, and it's not well enough for me to put it over Conclave. Now, for the decade of the 2020s, out of 32 total movies on the entertainment side, it's going to be 25th, just below It Ends With Us and above Kraven the Hunter. It's there for the exact same reasons as before. Now, cinematically, out of 32 total movies, it is going to be 10th, just above Conclave and just above Joker Folie à Deux and below Conclave. Again, it's there for the exact same reasons as before. Now, all time, out of 44 total movies on the entertainment side, it is going to be 37th, just below Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension, and above Kraven the Hunter. Now, I got it below Paranormal Activity purely for the freaking runtime. Like, Paranormal Activity is pretty much 50 minutes to an hour shorter than Nosferatu. Now, if I'm going to be forced to watch a movie I don't like, I'd rather watch one that's an hour shorter. And that's honestly one of my biggest reasons for having it below Paranormal Activity. Now, cinematically, out of 44 total movies, it's going to be 15th, just below Conclave and above The Martian. Now, I've got it above The Martian because The Martian really doesn't do that much cinematically. I thought the character depth wasn't that good. But Nosferatu, I will say, does do some things. It does take those leaps. It has some really interesting cinematic shots where I just feel like The Martian doesn't do much of anything. Its emotion isn't very good. The story isn't that complex. It's kind of one of those movies that's really riding the line between just being an entertainment movie but having some cinematic aspects. Nosferatu is a cinematic movie that may not work on all fronts, but there are some cinematic aspects that I think are really well done. Now, that's all I've got for Nosferatu. If you watched it and you really enjoyed it, tell me why. Please, if you disagree with anything I have said, if you agree with anything, please comment. That is the whole point that I started this channel. I really like interacting with you guys. If you've made it this far, thank you. Please put down a comment, whether that's how you felt about the movie, how you feel. Have you seen the original movie? How did it compare to the original? I have not seen it. I just really enjoy reading your comments and hearing from you guys. It's the whole point I started the channel. If you're interested in watching somebody that has a similar format that I do, well, similar, it's pretty much the same thing. He ranks in the same year, decade, and all time. Go check out Bosso Movie Reviews, my best friend. He has his own list with completely different movies. We have some similar movies, but he has a lot more than movies, a lot more movies than me at the moment, and he really values entertainment more than I do. I really value cinematography, so it's very different. So if you're interested in that, go check him out. Otherwise, please make sure to comment what movie you want me to do next, and ensure that you subscribe so that you can watch me do that movie. I will also tag you in the description of whatever movie that you comment so that you won't miss out on it. But I'm Mr. Majoritarian. Stay classy, San Diego.